You are listening to Thinner Peace and Menopause with Dr. Deb Butler, episode number 249. Welcome to Thinner Peace and Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. If you're a woman and you're smart and you're successful and you've been struggling with weight your whole life, and now menopause is making it harder than ever, and you are ready to make this the last time you ever have to go on a diet again, then this podcast is for you. Stay tuned. Hi, all my dear friends. How are you today? It is 2021. How's it going for you so far? Does it feel any different? I don't think so for me yet. I always like the new year only because I like to think of it as what will I do new or different that I haven't done in the past? That's really the way I like to think of it. And I can't think of anything better for this podcast than to introduce you to one of my clients. Her name is Kerry, who I worked with last year. And she's got the most beautiful accent and she is eloquent. And she has agreed to come on to the podcast and be interviewed with me. And she has so much to share about her experience and also about how uncomfortable she was before we started working together and how much better she is now that we're through. And I just think that out of all my clients, she just has a way of speaking that I think will speak to you. So I want you to sit back, lay back, take a walk, take a drive, whatever it is you're doing. And I want you to listen to another one of my beloved clients, Kerry, as she tells you about her experience in this journey with me of losing weight, finding peace, and losing this whole burden. Enjoy, and I'll come back at the end and say a few words. Hi, Kerry. Welcome to my podcast.
Hi, Dr. Deb.
You know what? So for those of us who aren't familiar with how I work, usually we work on the phone without seeing each other. So here we are today looking at each other, and it's just so lovely to see you. And there's so much I think you have to say. The reason that I wanted you to come on is to be able to share your experience that you had with me, because the experience that I had with you in many, many ways was life-changing for me.
Wow.
As a coach, because, you know, I think that the program that I offer is excellent. I really do. But the people who come on, who end up working with me, can either make it more excellent or less. And I think that by working with you, it's almost like I don't think my program could have been any better than what you made it. And I think a lot of that has to do with, which is what my first question is for you, is number one, why did you decide to start working with me? What was your inspiration? What was your motivation?
Yeah, so I think I've been listening to the podcast for quite a while. It had become
How long? I'm really curious. How long?
Well, you know, a good year, a really long time. And it was like a ritual. It was Tuesday, you know, the time difference meant that often on my drive home from work, it would be there. So I would listen. And I had learnt so much from it. It completely spoke to me. And I'd done a lot of work by myself. And I'd been inspired by not only the podcast and your teachings effectively on it, but by the other people, the other women that you had on there. But I sort of knew that I'd gone as far as I could by myself and listening to you. I felt like there was a layer that I needed some support to break through. And that was really what made me think, no, I'm ready now. I'm ready to take the next step with this.
That's so interesting. So the being ready, what was it that made you decide that you couldn't do it any longer by yourself? Because you were listening for a year, so you heard quite a bit of podcast and learned a lot of tools.
Yeah, a lot.
Right, but what was it? Or what was the feeling inside of you that made you decide to have a mini session with me? I'm so curious about that step.
I think it was, I can remember it actually. It was quite clearly, it's been so good and I've done so much. Think how mind blowing or wow it could be to actually do that work with you directly. And I felt I had banished all the excuses for not working with you directly because I'd done everything. And actually now this was the last piece for me really, was to pick up the phone or book that session in.
Was it hard for you or was it an easy step for you?
Oh, way easy, way easy. Once I had realized, okay, that's what I'm going to do, then it was very easy and very straightforward. Yeah, and I didn't have a second thought about it at all. Mm.
So then once we had our mini session, because you were quite clear with me with what you wanted, and I knew that I could work with you and I knew that I could help you because you were all in on yourself from the minute that I got on that phone call with you. What is
Yeah.
it? Because that's exactly what I'm saying about how you actually made my program better. And I think the reason that you did is because I think you went all in with me when you decided to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because I completely trusted you, because I knew that what you were doing was delivering results for me. Just listening to the podcast and applying what you taught, I was getting great results. I liked your style. I like the fact that you are gentle but very firm as well, and that you can put your finger on things so quickly and easily. So even from our mini session, I knew that you got me. You know, in a few minutes, you understood where I was coming from. And I just loved the fact that we didn't talk about food. We didn't talk about all the usual things that you think about. It was about me. You absolutely were talking to me as a complete individual and not somebody that fitted any program. And that's what made me, know that I could go all in on it.
Wow. And you did. And for people who are listening to this, because like I think when you were on the other end, you were
Yeah.
watching other people being interviewed by me, right?
Yes.
What was it about those interviews that inspired you?
Because they were normal women. They were people I talked to. They were like my friends. They didn't come from different backgrounds where, their lifestyles were way different from mine. What they were saying just spoke to me. And I thought, well, if it can really work for those women, then it can for me as well. Nobody started talking about specialist things or regimes or anything that I didn't think I could do as well.
Did it make it seem more doable to you after hearing interviews?
Yes, yes, it did. I think it supported me knowing it was doable. I think it was just like hearing my questions back being answered by somebody who had been through it. So it was almost like a bit of a tick list in my mind that these women were supporting what I thought and had been successful with it.
If you could say a little bit about where you have come from in terms of what were your biggest pain points? What were you suffering with the most that made you want to, number one, listen to my podcast, and number two, want to work with me? What was it for you?
I think it was actually knowing that I wanted to feel happy with my weight, to find a way to feel happy with my body and my weight loss. And that was all I was thinking about then, was that's what I want to find a peace around. And I was just looking for different podcasts, and some spoke a bit to me, some didn't. Some were not quite from where I was in my point of life. And yet, yours did. And so that's what made me stick with it. Because I did start with lots of different podcasts, but yours was the only one that I stuck with. Which, hey, I don't stick with things if they don't work. So there was a reason for that.
Would you say your biggest pain point was being able to be comfortable in your own body and around food? Was it a yo-yo dieting type of thing that was going on for you? Like, what was going on that you didn't want anymore, that brought you over to my podcast and then brought you over to me? What was it? Because it's not there anymore. So I want people to
No.
know what it was So when they hear
Yeah.
where you are, they can appreciate it.
So what it was having it always in my life. If I could achieve so many things, why was it that year on year, each new year it would be the thing that I would want to fix that year? And I remember a successful friend saying to me that she looked back on her 50th birthday, and the one thing that she would have liked to have done was to get her weight under control. And I thought, yeah, me too, please. And so I think it was because it was constantly there, and I was fed up with thinking about it. I was fed up with it being a thing in my life. And I think that was the most painful point. And it's actually quite difficult, even in the short time we've worked together, for me to go back to that point and remember how draining that constant feeling of I must do something to get this sorted out was to me.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. And so, like, when we started working together,
Mm,
I don't even think, and you can refresh me, but I think in the beginning, we did not talk very much about your food or food journals right in the beginning.
no,
I think that you were so open about the things that were going on with you that were kind of in the way of all of this. And I think it's really good for people to hear that it's not that we didn't talk about food, because we did talk
yeah,
about food and we did a
yeah.
lot with food journals and a lot of work. But for you, what would you say? Because some of our sessions only had to do with coaching your brain around what you were thinking,
Yeah.
really going deep into emotions.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I wonder if you might say, something like that, because I remember in the beginning about it was hard for you to feel, negative emotions, to actually go there and to process it. And I know we did some work with that. And I'm wondering, if you might want to speak about that, because it was so profound for me to watch you having your aha moments as you're going through it. And I wonder if you can say something to those who are listening who probably were where you were
Yeah.
and want to know how that was.
How that was. Yeah, well, that was fascinating because I think, as you say, we didn't talk really about food because I think I'd got to the point of knowing it wasn't really about the food. It was how it got into my mouth that was the important thing. And we looked at emotions because I think I've actually been very good at putting emotions in boxes and putting them away and carrying on. But I think what I learned with you was to really feel them. And I can say that I think it was the first time I had consciously processed an emotion, i.e., we had gone through it, together. I'd processed it. I mean, of course, I've been in situations where I felt immense grief, etc., but
Yes.
that overtook me. But this was the first time that I had really looked at an emotion and let it pass through me. And I put them in boxes because I thought that they were going to be really draining, that they were going to stop me doing things. And what I soon realized is that actually, if I let them sit with me and I understood them, they started to go away really quickly. I mean, the first couple of times it took a bit longer, but then it was much quicker. And I couldn't understand why I hadn't been doing that. But I didn't know.
Right. You didn't know. You thought keeping them compartmentalized and away from you, which is what we call resisting,
Yeah.
just actually made what you're talking about when you say it was exhausting, where you were in terms of thinking about your body and food. Really, the exhausting part was not wanting to feel the emotions and not knowing that.
It was much less exhausting to actually deal with it than to have it nagging in the back of my mind the whole time. But to actually, let it come through me and then poof, it gone. So much, the sense of lightness and freedom you get from being able to do that is quite magical, really. Quite magical.
You know what? It was quite magical for me to watch it. And I think what happens, and you can tell me where I'm wrong, but I think what happens is that we're so afraid to feel our own feelings and we keep ourselves so far away from them. But only what it does is it actually just makes us feel a little bit of negative emotion all the time. and really
Yeah.
not know where it's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. You have that background. It's humming away, in the
Yes.
background. And I definitely felt that. And I mean, sometimes you still, even when you're working with your emotions, occasionally you make the conscious decision to feel a bit fed up, but you know why you're feeling fed up. And it's staying with you. But you've opened it up and you've looked at it. And sometimes I felt that you accept, well, I am going to feel a bit fed up in that way. But it was fine because it was a conscious, I had opened it up and looked at it. It wasn't that feeling of I don't know why, because I found out why. Most of the time I could find out why quite quickly.
And that is something really interesting for those who are listening about you is the reason I think you could do all of this is because any homework that I gave you, you took it seriously.
Yeah.
You did it. And you really did work on processing your emotions and really being able to look at it. And I think that you were very serious from the minute you started, very serious about this work for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. This was an investment in myself and I was taking it seriously. Yes.
Wow. Okay, so where you are now, let's talk a little bit about where you are now, because what I want people to hear now is that you felt kind of exhausted. You were sick of this whole body, food, what am I going to do every year after year? Where are you now after we've worked together? And if you could just share some of that with people who are listening, because I think it's hopeful. And especially with you, you were so eloquent with your words. And also, I just want to remind you a little bit, I don't have it with me, but what you wrote with why this is your last time was
Yeah.
also so beautiful. So if you just would just say a little bit about where you are now and what it feels like for you. And
Yeah. I feel such a sense of peace because I've understood a puzzle which has been on my mind for so long. So it's not just that the weight's coming off, and the weight's coming off in a nice, gentle way for me that really suits me and my lifestyle. But I know why. I know why it was there and why it became there. And therefore, I just feel a lightness and actually a great respect for myself for working all that out. And I've learned so much along the way. I've learned that the tools that we used and that I learned are applicable to so many other things as well. So, I came to you about my weight, and yet, I'm using them to help the way I think about money, the way I think of some difficult relationships potentially. So I've learned so much more. I feel really quite empowered by that. And I think one of the things as well we worked on, which really has made a difference, is putting myself first more. We really looked at that, and that's made a big difference. And as I said to you, who knew that by putting myself first, I'm in a much better position to help other people. That was that was quite sort of that was an aha moment, wasn't it? Which was very, very important for me. And I think that it is a lightness when I think about things. I don't wake up in the morning thinking, what did I eat yesterday? Do I have to be careful today? It's like it's gone. It's taken care of nicely in my mind. And that's so freeing. There's much more space now to think about other things.
oh my gosh.
And, it's been so helpful in so much as the things that people around me have noticed. Yes, people have noticed I've lost weight, but people have noticed that I'm calmer. They've noticed that people will say to me, oh, you're in a good place. And I am in a really good place. And that's been, really something I didn't expect. I expected to go down a size or two in my jeans, thank you. But I have got so much more out of the work that we've done. And I would urge anybody to really think about how you invest in yourself and the outcomes that you'll get. You have to put the work in. And as you said, it's not always easy because you are having to sometimes look at some areas that you hadn't considered before. But the great thing about working with you is you took me by the hand, and every step of the way you were there. So that's what made it special, I think, to have that support to be able to do it. Never, seeing how you can do that any other time.
Well, everything you said, like I said, I know people are saying she's so eloquent, and yes, you are in what you just said. And I guess the way that I would like to end this is, what would you say to somebody who's listening to this that's on the fence? What would
I
you
would,
say to them? Because these are the two things. It's a big investment
yeah,
and it takes time.
yeah, yeah,
And both of those things are big considerations for most women, including you, I'm sure.
yeah. I would say take yourself seriously, take your needs seriously. And I think about what you're getting back for your investment. It is a big investment to consider. But actually, if you break down what you're going to get back from it, then you can really see the value in it. And the value is not just in losing the weight. The value, I think, for me certainly has been in that freedom. And I would say really think about that. If this is something that you've been trying to sort out for a number of years, then what you're buying is the freedom that it'll then give you when you've been able to do that for yourself. And that's the important thing. You'll be doing it for you and, with yourself, guided by you. It's not like you're following a diet sheet. You're absolutely doing the work in your head. So I would say put yourself first and look at it not as an amount of money, but as a real investment with great outcomes for you. And that those outcomes will go all around you. It's not just you, the people around you will feel them as well.
Wow.
So do it, is what I would say.
I just love it. And Kerry, it was such an honor to work with you, really an honor and a privilege.
Oh, I had a great time. Oh, it
Yes.
was a privilege to work with you. Really enjoyed it. And yes, it has been life-changing, but I've really enjoyed our time. And just as I said in my letter, it was a thank you to me for doing the work, but a thank you to you for guiding me and getting me there too.
There's nothing left I could possibly say, but thank you for being on the podcast today. Thank you, Kerry.
Absolute pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I know she's amazing. I know I say this about all of my clients, but it is something that I really, really believe with all my heart, and that I love my clients so much. And I think they love me too. I think this relationship that we create when we work together by going so deep, as Kerry talked about, because she's so eloquent with the way that she speaks, but you have to know that when she was working with me, she went deep. She was open to everything, and she did her work in between our calls so that when we got on the call, we went into some deep stuff. It's just what she wanted to do, and it's what she was aware of. And I think one of my meta skills is that I can go wherever my clients want to go, and I never go where they don't want to go. I really do think that's probably the beauty of one of the ways that I work with my clients, and why so many of my clients are willing to come in and talk about it is because of this relationship that we have. And I think the other thing with Kerry that she said to me that you might have noticed is that the main reason that she came on is because she came on because of the women before her that had been on my podcast that I had interviewed. They inspired her to want to talk to me, to do a mini session with me, and to do the work with me. And that's the reason that she came on this time, is that she hoped that she would help you do the same thing that it had helped her. So if Kerry made an impression on you with the emotional work that she did, because she did do the emotional work, we did do a lot with food journals. I'm not saying we didn't do food, but as she said, it's so much more than just the food, and it all came up. It's not what she was eating, it's why she was putting it in her mouth, as she said it in her most eloquent way. So, if this is something that you've been meaning to do, wanting to do, thinking about doing, is there ever going to be a better time? I don't think so. I have never, ever had a client not think that this was not the best decision they ever made. But I'll tell you this, I know there's a lot of people out there who did not make that decision for whatever reason, who are not doing anything different either. So if you're ready and you're ready to make a difference in your life, it's what I do. If I think I can help you, if I think my program can help you, I will let you know in a mini session. All you have to do is go to drdebbutler.com/work with me, and you can set up a mini session and have 2021 make it be the best decision you ever made. That's what you would say to yourself. The best decision I made in 2021 was working with Dr. Deb. And then you can come on my podcast and say the same thing. So as always, you know what I'm going to say to you. Wherever you go, whatever you do, please, please, please be very, very kind to yourself. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. If you're loving my podcast and you would like some more information to be able to follow along with, then please go to drdebbutler.com/change, and you can get a free copy of my companion book that goes with this podcast that I refer to in many different episodes. That is drdebbutler.com/change, CHANGE.